Flash to kick back towards the wing for Levy! Left now, lines them up. It's coming back. Hawks is the biggest man there.
G'day guys, welcome to Red Time. Jared Barker, Mason Cox, episode 14.
14?
Footy.
Huge.
A lot happening. Footy
14
and news are probably two things that don't sleep, so
Yeah.
a lot to get to today.
It's a lot to go through.
Oh, there always is.
Plenty happening.
It makes it enjoyable.
A lot of juicy matchups this weekend. I'm not going to lie. Last week was a bit of a lull.
It's a far cry to what we had last week.
Yeah, now we're kind of looking at the primetime games this week.
Yeah, just a little finals preview, perhaps. So a lot to sink our teeth into. We won't waste too much time, Mason, because a lot has been happening in the fallout of episode 17, round 17.
Yep.
And
17.
looking
towards
round 18 as well. What has been dominating the headlines this week and sparking a lot of debate across social media is the AFL in-season tournament idea, because reports have emerged that a meeting between the AFL and club CEOs held some talks about a bold idea that the league might be exploring in the way of an NBA-style in-season tournament. So it is only early days. It's purely conceptual right now, but it is being considered as part of the fixture puzzle once Tassie enters the comp in 2028, if and when that does happen, which will obviously create an uneven 19-team comp. So the AFL's two floated formats with this is a month-long tournament mid-year, which would pause the regular season. The other floated format is playing the tournament games every 4 to 6 weeks or so throughout the home and away season. So some incentives mentioned include a $5 million prize money. We love cash on this. That sounds very good. And possibly even a guaranteed finals berth for the tournament winner. So there's a lot to go through there, MC. What's your gut reaction to the idea? And have you actually been at the club since those reports emerged? Has anyone actually spoken about it?
No.
Okay.
Well, I think 2028, probably 3/4 of our list might be retired, so we might not have to worry about it too much.
Not too many youngsters. Not
too stressed about it. But no, we haven't really talked about it too much. It is an interesting idea. I think it kind of blossoms from the NBA idea, and then the NBL obviously is kind of tacked on the back of that. So the AFL is going, okay, we have an odd number. We have to try to find out how we're going to be able to handle this in the fixture and kind of how we want to maybe play this thing out. So it's an idea. I love ideas. Do I think it's a great idea? Probably not. I do have some hesitations towards it. I have an idea to throw back to the AFL maybe in that sense.
Yes.
But I understand it is a unique kind of way to go about it. A mid-season, as you talked about, a month-long tournament in the mid-year, that's going to be an interesting one. I don't think many teams mid-year, what do you do, split the season in half and go first half and a second half? Because
pause the home and away fixture to play the tournament like they do in the NBA from November to December. I mean, it's different because those games count towards their regular season.
Yeah.
But the first idea of a month-long tournament would be, I don't know, somewhere in the middle of the year.
But it's a month-long tournament, which then goes into playing a game a week, which is pretty much just continuing on what the season is.
Depends on what the format of the competition structure would be, but we don't really know those details.
You wouldn't be able to have more than one game a week just for the ability to back up games and the ability to recover as players and stuff like that. So, I mean, I just don't think from a time frame perspective to put that in a month is going to be the outcome you want. And then if you get knocked out of the tournament, what do you do? Just sit around for 3 weeks? Don't really know. That one I was a bit hesitant on because I'm like, I don't really understand how that would kind of play out and how that makes sense in a general nature.
Yeah.
The other one was every 4 to 6 weeks throughout the year playing a tournament game. That's an interesting one. I don't know. Like, do you consider and say like you're going to essentially have the same season as you would normally do, but then all of a sudden like this one game you're playing against Adelaide in round 4 is going to have more Oh man, it's gonna.
Are you looking for implications?
Implications. That's the word I'm looking for. Yes, it's gonna have more implications.
Well, that's when
it's a double whammy as far as a tournament game and a regular season game.
Yeah,
and then just that's gonna be randomly scattered throughout the year. Like I think the one thing that does maybe cater for that is a floating fixture, where you can maybe change games in the back half to depending on where the tournament sits at and what teams are still in it, what teams are out of it. Yeah. I still don't think teams will jump on board.
Well, one of the issues I think a lot of people have is, will players actually take it seriously? Would they buy into the concept at all?
I think the only way, and this is the NBA did this whenever they had it.
So
is, and I wrote this down.
Yes.
I wrote about 6 of these, and it's dollar signs. If there's some dollar signs involved, and there's some players getting dollar signs out of it, yeah, you might get a little bit more investment from players.
It's not the worst incentive.
No. And you talked about $5 million and prize money. We weren't sure if that prize money was going to the clubs or the players.
I'm sure there'd be a split.
Look, I'll be honest with you, if you say every person on the list, because you're going to have different guys going in and out of games depending on the tournament, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to pay every player on the list, which is over 40 players. Not sure the math of 5 million divided by 40 plus players, but I reckon it'd probably be around that. You'd have to be paying the players.
So
because you can't, like, if you're taking that 5 million, you're paying the club. It's like the players are going to be the ones that at the end of the day make the decision of whether or not they want to do it. And if you're financially benefiting the clubs and not the players, then the players are going to go, why would we do extra for this?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. What is our incentive then? Because those are the ones you're going to have to actually get across the line to be able to want to do this. It was the same thing with Gather Round. We got Gather Round in. Gather Round was an extra game into the season. And what did they do? They said, oh, we'll pay you an extra amount because you're playing one more game per season. What the AFL's done now is they've taken that payment out 3 or 4 years later, and now they're screwing us. But that's a different situation, okay?
Topic for next week.
That's a whole different thing. Go on a rant of that. But what it is I think it's going to be a tough sell. Financially is going to be pretty much the only thing that'll get players across the line, I think.
Yeah.
And the structure of it's going to have to be very unique in a sense.
So is the lure of a potential finals spot, guaranteed finals spot for the tournament winner, is that a lure enough for players?
What, to get the 8 spot and then you only have the top 7 go through?
Potentially.
Yeah.
I'm not for it, but that's I'm just trying to figure out and unpack what the proposal is.
You could almost do you could do like the tournament and then like the final 4 teams of the tournament playoff for the last 2 spots of the finals, right? Maybe expand it out to 10 or do 7, 8, 9, 10 play for the last 2 spots or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's
at this stage, Tassie would be it as well because it'd be in 19 teams. But what
we can all agree on, this Tassie thing is throwing a huge spanner in the works.
It has, but that's why they need to
not
have
convenient whatsoever.
That's why they need to talk about this. And it's one of the big positives. I reckon there's 3 pros to this.
Yeah.
I'm against it as a whole generally, but there are 3 pros. The first one, I think it's just the long-term vision of it and the fact that the league is actually coming together with club CEOs and having this discussion about the future of the game and ways to improve the competition structure. I think it's important to look ahead and try and evolve the game for the better for the future. I mean, you look at a rival code like the NRL who's taking games to Vegas and what that does for marketability and global reach. Now, I don't think we need to do that in the AFL. Let's keep it in Australia. But it'd be a nice little trip away, I guess. But I think you need to keep evolving. So the fact that the league's having this discussion is the first pro. I think that's a healthy thing to do.
I agree. Yep.
The second pro is revenue and increasing revenue for the competition. It's funny because one of the negatives I see online is people saying, it's just all about the money. And I sometimes sit there and I go, well, yeah, it's a business. It's literally what a business is about. You're going to provide value to someone for something, and to do that, you need to make money. Businesses make money. It's not a bad thing.
Can't stand people that say this. It's like, oh, wait, hold on. If your job was going to offer you more cash, would you say yes to it? Yes. So why is this like, why do people get upset when they go, oh, it's all about the money? It's like, well, yeah. Of course it is. Exactly. If you were in the same situation, you would be about the money too.
Yeah. Hate to break it to people, but businesses make money, which is a crazy
and
concept.
if you don't,
breaking
you don't exist as a business.
Breaking news on Red Time, businesses like making money. But anyway, revenue increase for the AFL.
Yeah.
The fact that they're actually having these discussions. And then the third main pro that I have is the fixture equality, which we talk about on this pod, or I do anyway, all the time. I think the fact that we still have clubs who play 5 or 6 double-up games against different teams to every other team. I think that's a joke.
Yeah.
So the quicker we move towards more fixture equality, the better. And playing everyone once is a massive tick for me, even in addition to the gather round and your rivalry round that you might add. And then this in-season tournament, that idea in this proposal to me says you want to stretch it out from March to September. You want to keep the same length season. I think that's to appease the current broadcast arrangement, which came into effect this year, runs out in 2031. I think after that, you can reassess things, reevaluate, and then maybe further improve the competition in terms of equality. But this is a step towards having a more even fixture. So fixture equality, revenue, and the fact that they're just having this discussion, massive pros for me. But there are cons too. I don't think.
But I'm not a fan.
The-
So what you're saying is you
The
could play
game doesn't need
every
it.
team. There'd be 17 games on the back end, and then you do a preseason tournament at the very beginning. And depending on where you fall in the preseason tournament, given the fact that most teams are probably their healthiest at the beginning of the year,
Yeah, for sure.
you say wherever you fall in that tournament is essentially where you're going to fall as far as the teams that you'll play twice. So the teams at the bottom of that after the tournament play each other twice, where you're not having like a top team play a bottom team twice.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you find the fixture is after the tournament, depending on where people fall in seeding. Is that kind of the idea?
What
I think that might be the best way of taking this forward.
potentially. I don't think the game needs it though.
I don't think so either. And I think what we need to do is just if
Fans
you want
wouldn't
to
care about
introduce a tournament, do a preseason tournament, and don't do a Wizard Cup.
Cup.
Don't do a NAB
Yes.
Cup. Don't pull that BS.
AFLX.
No. Pull in something that has a financial benefit where clubs and players get paid if you win it. Therefore, people are going to actually care about it and say, sweet, we'll extend this out to be X amount of games, and the winner of this bracket then plays this group, this team, whatever it is, and the winner of the whole thing gets, each player that plays in that is incentivized $100,000, whatever it is. And then actually players will care about the preseason because we all know that there is not as much commitment to that preseason for teams and stuff as there used to be back in the day.
Yeah.
And I think that's been kind of hammered home for a long time where teams are really kind of playing their youth and everything else. And you're probably not getting the best version of the team that's going to be playing round one throughout every single preseason game.
Yeah. I think the other thing to this, and it's a completely different topic as well that you could talk about, is state of origin and having that instead.
Yeah.
I'm not even the biggest advocate for state of origin because I don't think we have the same passion in the AFL for it that the NRL do. I mean, that has a lot of meaning, New South Wales versus Queensland. It's not the same passion in the AFL,
Yeah.
so I don't think that'll work. But even then, I think it'd be better than an NBA Cup, we'll call it. I don't think this is what the game needs. I don't think fans care. And as you said, it'd be hard for players to care as well unless there are those incentives. So not for me, but at least the league is having conversations. I'll put it that way.
They can add a game on Indigenous All-Stars versus International All-Stars. Dang. Throw that out as a preseason game.
How deep would the International All-Stars bat?
You'd have to have one parent that's born overseas. And then that qualifies.
So it's just the NGA Academy, essentially.
I wouldn't say it's all NGA. You
Which
got the Irish
which
guys
there are a
and
lot of.
stuff. There's a few others. And the NGA Academy is massive.
That'd be pretty cool, actually.
I think that would be kind of a unique way of. I mean, I love the game they did, the preseason game, Indigenous All Stars versus each other, but I'm not really sure exactly. It'd be cool to have like a game that's a bit more celebrating, I guess, different cultures in that sense.
Yeah,
and it would be a hell of a spectacle. I mean, the Indigenous All Stars was crazy enough, and then to bring in all these other people from different like kind of backgrounds, I think it brings a broader community into the AFL community.
Yep. Well said. I like it.
Maybe that was the answer all along.
It probably was. Let's move on. As I said, plenty to get to.
Yeah.
There's been a noticeable shift in how often umpires are stopping games for player injuries, which is fine when you think about the health and safety of players and the seriousness of concussion, I guess. But I'm noticing a lot of halting of games by umpires for little niggly injuries. I mean, I think there was one in the Carlton-Collingwood game last Friday night. Nick Dacos went up for a mark. He landed awkwardly on his back. He was a little bit hurt, down on the ground for a little bit, got back up, ran it off, and then the umpire started play again. They stopped it later in the game for another incident as well, which didn't seem too serious. They're stopping games when players need to put their boots back on after they fall off throughout the game as well. I think it's gone a little bit too far, but I want to know from you, are we stopping the game too often right now?
I'm always going to take player health and safety is number one. And I think there's some things like the boot falling off and waiting for someone to put that back on. I think that's unnecessary. But there are other incidents, and this is all stemming from the Lachie Schultz thing that happened early in the year with the concussion. And that was very, very obvious to a mishap and a miscommunication that kind of happened through that experience. Now, I think we've probably, like most things, you kind of go too far and then you come back to the middle, and that's kind of where you land for the rest of their time. So maybe we're on this part of the spectrum that's a bit too far, and we're going to come back a little bit at some point, and that's where we'll land. But I do think it's kind of a bit much at the moment. But the biggest thing for me is probably just that umpires on the field don't always need to be the ones that make this decision as to stopping the game.
They have enough responsibility as it is.
We have the technology where umpires have headsets in their ear that can tell them exactly what's going on. And you have the vision from Channel 7 or wherever it is of all these different angles of what's going on in the game. And there should be people in a box that make determination of, do I press the red button to tell them to stop the game? There's a serious injury on the field. And I think that's pretty easily visually seen. Sometimes it might be behind the play. It might be someone swinging an elbow and doing something that's just unnecessary, and an umpire doesn't see it because they're paying attention to what's around the ball.
Yep.
So they have the ability to have the vision there. So I think the biggest thing is just having the communication clear in that sense, where they almost make the decision and the umpire is the one that just adjudicates the decision and says, hey, we're stopping the game for this.
Yep.
So I think it's taking a bit more responsibility away from the umpires and making their job easier by giving that responsibility to someone else who has more information than they do with all the camera angles they have.
Is it frustrating for players when games do stop a little unnecessarily? Like, have you ever had a situation where you're standing there, the umpire stopped the game, and you've just thought to yourself, wait, why are we stopping?
As long as it's like a stoppage or like a goal review, I don't think we care as much. But if you're in like play and the ball's moving around and stuff, and the ball, like all of a sudden you stop, you're kind of looking around like,
but if that's
why?
for a player just putting his boot back on, what would you think?
Yeah, I'd be
that's
pretty annoyed.
That's what has happened.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, at a stoppage, it'd be kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, you give them 5 seconds, maybe. Like,
admittedly, there might be
a
hazard of the boot lying on the ground that they can't start the play. We might just not know of that rule, and there has been a directive to the umpires.
Yeah,
we don't know, but I think that's when it gets a little bit too far. But yeah, you are right. You think of the Schultz incident. You can go back to the Christian Petrarca incident from last year. The AFL might have been spooked by that and just thought, hey, nah, better safe than sorry. When you do notice even the most minor of injuries, you just never know. Just stop the play.
Yeah, I think better safe than sorry is probably the outcome. But I think giving more responsibility to the people up in the box or the camera angles is probably my result that I would like.
Yep, I think I agree with you. Coach honesty in the media. We've spoken about player honesty. We may have touched on coaches as well, to be honest. But there was another instance of this from the weekend. So Damien Hardwick, he was full of praise for Essendon, glowing in his endorsement of them after the Suns beat him. But it did come with a healthy dose of backhand. So this is his
subtle
quote.
It was subtle
in the press conference. I thought Essendon were very good. They obviously went to work over the break. Normally they're low pressure, low contest. Today was high pressure, and they were going forward as opposed to going backwards with their hands and backwards kicks. Is this honesty in presses good for the game, or does it just dip a little bit too far when they start talking about the way another team plays?
I think it's true. Like, whether or not you're upset about him making comments about your team, if you're an Essendon fan saying that they play slow, I think if you look at the statistical data behind it, which is what Dim is probably basing these comments based on, right?
Yep.
Like, he might be going, oh, sweet, their pressure rating comparatively to the rest of the,
Yep.
the league is very low, and their kick mark is, low, or whatever it is. And I think what he is saying in his mind is he's going, okay, I've got all these numbers in my head that I'm crunching. I know all the different stuff that equates to how their game plan is played. But for me to say that to an audience of fans wouldn't make sense. So he's kind of like dumbing it down in a sense of going, hey, I know what you guys understand. And I know what you understand. It's like what pressure in general means, what contest in general means, what, going forward and backwards with hands and kicks generally means.
Yeah.
He would have the numbers behind there to back up that comment. But for fans, they're not as interested in the numbers because they don't understand kind of what that equates to. They rather just know the end result of how Essendon plays.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like, you talk about like low pressure, low contest. I mean, if you went back and looked at the numbers, I guarantee you they would align up with what he's saying.
It's a backhanded compliment, but what he was saying is true. And two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. And he actually, it was a compliment saying that they've gone to work and put time and effort in to be able to change their game style. Whether or not it works for them or not is kind of dependent on how successful they become. But he kind of goes, okay, if you're looking at these base ratings, which he says contest, pressure, and going backwards and forwards with kicks, he says, they've essentially improved in that, which has allowed them to be a better team. So he's giving them credit.
I'm all
Did
for
you say
it.
they weren't great before?
Nah, I'm all for
In a little
this as
way,
well. It's funny
but
how this sort of commentary isn't as accepted in this country as it is in
pathetic.
overseas sports.
It's really pathetic.
It's such an area we can improve in a lot of areas, but this is one where we can really mature as an industry and just accept that sticks and stones sometimes.
Australians are so good at like putting each other down and like.
And then complaining. We're allergic.
And then we complain.
We're allergic
like,
to change,
oh my
and we just want
God,
to complain about everything.
It's such a contradicting thing.
I think the other thing is like we want honest coaches, but I reckon sometimes they can forget how closely words do get dissected by people. As well.
He wouldn't.
So
I mean, Dimmer, after he had made that comment, probably wouldn't even thought of it.
No.
He probably would have gone.
He may have as well, which is still fine. But
I don't think he would have cared anyway.
I think the more honesty from players and coaches, the game will absolutely be better for it. That's
do you think the Basalenka comment earlier in the year was warranted then? Okay.
Yeah, it was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, when he said,
About the Bulldogs.
you're not getting this in Ballarat?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
I don't know. That wasn't subtle at all. That was a direct jab.
If your former players come after you the next time you play, like, you wear it. Like, you got to own that because you made the comment. But he didn't say anything derogatory or rude or sinister, I don't think. But
no, I liked it. It had a bit of flair to the
stones.
game, and I look back to that game, and I'm like, that's one of the ones that stick out for the year.
Indeed.
So that's what we're all going for, aren't we?
We are. Looking ahead.
All
round
right,
18. We did touch on this at the start. It's a massive round of footy after a little dell in the season in round 17. But round 18 is massive. There are massive storylines everywhere you look. Which one are you most looking forward to?
Freo Hawks at
game.
Optus.
Big game.
Massive game.
Freo have to bounce back.
It's going to be juicy. I think the Hawks have a pretty tough run home, so they need to get some wins on the board to make finals. They're sitting at 5th on the ladder, I think, at the moment.
Hawthorn?
Yeah.
11 wins. Yeah, equal third, I think.
Yeah, so they're definitely up there, but they've got a tough run home, and they're going to need to knock out some of these teams. Like Freo's
all these teams
not at the bottom by any means, but I think these are the ones that you look at and you go, this is kind of finals prep of like, we need to get these scalps. Yeah. Knowing that we're going to have some hard teams to go up against whenever it comes to the top 8.
We're at the part of the season where there are a lot of 8-point games that are coming up.
Yeah.
And it starts with this round with so many contenders facing each other. I mean, Freo Hawthorn's one of them, but
what's your game of the week? What do you got for me?
I like the Dogs and the Crows.
Yeah.
So I'm really it is
at Marvel.
It's at Marvel, yeah.
Yep.
So it was the one where it was supposed to be a Ballarat, but they moved it to Marvel.
Smart. Prep for finals.
Yeah, exactly. Just how do the Dogs go against a contender? They're 1-6 against the rest of the top 9 this season. They need to prove their worth against the contender, and it starts this week against Adelaide. And a tough game for them because I think when you look at the Dogs, or when I look at the Dogs team, they're probably lacking a little bit in height in defence. They do play undersized there. Maybe that's working for them. They are winning games, and that's fine. But you come up against an Adelaide forward line that has Riley Thilthorpe, Darcy Fogarty, Tex Walker, and Dan Curtin when he floats down there from the wing as well. It's essentially 4 talls, and you're running around with Rory Lobb and James O'Donnell. That's fine, but it's only 2 of them. You've got Nick Caulfield who has to play, 20 centimetres above his height?
Yeah.
I think they need to bring Liam Jones in. I'd be surprised if they don't. But that's why it's so fascinating to me. How will they actually line up against each other, and how do the Dogs stack up against a genuine contender?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting little battle. If I had to pick someone, I'd pick the Dogs.
Home. It's easy to go with the home team.
And a lot of it is because of Marvel, I think, in that scenario. Like their experience there.
It's tough.
I wouldn't say Adelaide's played there a ton. I don't know the numbers behind it, but I think I'd have to go to the Dogs to get a scalp here.
Yeah.
And
they need
the Crows are a darn good team. Like everyone knows that. But it is a different place to play. And I think the Bulldogs play very well there. So it'll be interesting. It'll be close.
Yep.
But I've got the Dogs definitely getting the scalp.
Gold Coast's biggest game of their history on Friday night?
Yeesh. I feel like every year they say that whenever we go up there.
Nah.
Because every year they're getting better and better. So like every game.
But this is the year. Like they're in the 8 right. They're entrenched right now.
They're entrenched.
They're entrenched. I think they're at their best a contender. But they need, again, like the Dogs, and like all these teams, they need to prove that. And there's no bigger test right now than the ladder leaders that are going up there. Sell-out crowd, Friday night lights. It's a massive game for them. It's a really big build-up.
What do you think the percentage is, Gold Coast to Collingwood fans?
This is not a scientific guess, but 85-15?
85-15. 85
absolutely
Collingwood.
Yeah.
I'd assume.
100%. They've got a lot of...
That's such a wild...
Yeah, but Collingwood have a lot of fans up in
Yeah.
Queensland as well, naturally. And there's a lot of people that travel up there.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact, so...
Also, it's school holidays, which definitely helps too.
Which does help, yeah. How are you guys treating the week? I mean, it's a massive build-up for them, but internally, how do you guys approach it?
Yeah, I don't know. We're not really changing much, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think we have any schedule changes by any means. We travel up the same kind of time as we always do.
Yep.
We're just taking it as just a normal week, really, of like traveling to another city to play a game. So, no, I don't think we don't really deviate week to week whenever it comes to that stuff. Like, we've got a pretty good game plan in a sense.
Let's keep it real.
Know what we like, kind of having like a big game on a weekend, knowing what to expect during the week, and like when our big days are, when our main training days are, and everything else. Like that might shift a mood depending on how many days break we have from one game to another. But the general stance of how a week's structured up is pretty similar. So I don't think like we look at it and go, oh my gosh, this is going to be a totally different week from one week to the next. Yeah. We try to be as level as we can.
All right, let's finish it off. Don't be surprised if final segments, I'm going to kick this one off. Don't be surprised if the Arc doesn't get another conclusive call wrong this year after its diabolical mistake in the Judd McPhee overrule. So this happened in the Melbourne-Adelaide game on the weekend. They can't make another mistake after they've done this.
Oh, they've made plenty of mistakes in the past.
Of course they have. But, so Ben Keys kicked a wild goal. He was falling to his back and the ball just dropped and popped off his shin, floated in the air. And
is a shin technically a kick?
It's below the knee, so it counts. Yeah, so technically it is. Yeah, it's a kick off the shin.
Okay.
We'll call it that. It was sailing over the line, but it was touched by Judd McPhee, as the AFL confirmed, as reported by the Herald Sun. They admitted that there was an error in overruling the soft call from the goal umpire, which was a touched and which was, in the end, accurate.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're a billion-dollar industry and you're getting that wrong, that is unacceptable. Imagine the repercussions if this happens in a final.
Well,
seriously, imagine if the AFL comes out and apologises because your team's lost by 3 points in a prelim because of the wrong call in a score review. That's outrageous to me.
Oh, man.
So, not good enough. It was a 15-point margin at the time as well, last quarter of the game. But I don't think they're going to be getting one wrong again, given what just happened.
I think they will.
That's
the most loving way.
Optimist, pessimist.
Yes,
I get.
I'm a realist, I think is what I like to call it.
I'm a realist.
You're an optimist. I'm a realist. But it is it's something that's been talked about for years, trying to fix that. And I don't know the solution. I don't know who needs to come in and be able to renovate.
Well, I think in this case, it was just they didn't rewind the tape. I think that's the suggestion. They didn't actually see the touch. They were looking at the wrong angle or the wrong part of the vision.
There's just
so it's
many
fixable
ways to fix it.
Yeah,
there really is. But
ball chipping technology.
I digress.
Yes.
I digress. I'll go. Don't be surprised. Now, obviously, there's a bit of news, you could say, this week over the last few days about Tom Lynch and his suspension and what happened over the weekend. Don't be surprised Tom Lynch doesn't finish his career at Richmond. He won a premiership with Dimma at Richmond.
3-club player, you reckon?
He might be a 2-club player.
That's real QB2 areas.
He could go back. He could go back to the Gold Coast with the coach of Dimma there. I'm not sure how it finished, if there was just like burning bridges of everything, but I think he would probably have a great relationship with Dimma.
Yep.
Maybe go back there to finish his career at some point.
Out of contract.
I honestly think like a lot of the older players that have, the resume that he has the ability that he has. You kind of go, okay, sweet. Do I continue playing with a team that is probably not going to be in finals contention for a little bit?
Yep.
Or do I go over to another team and try to see out another premiership before I retire?
Yep.
And to be honest, I think most people who have financially been able to benefit as much as Tom Lynch has goes, sweet. Like, finances is not as important as being successful.
Yep. Still low 30s. You see what some veterans are, or how they're performing this year. It must give other veterans around the league some confidence that if they do stay fit and healthy, maybe they can still have impacts at
for sure
different clubs. So
there's opportunity for sure.
Yep,
there definitely
100%.
What's your last? Don't be surprised. What do you got?
Yeah, don't be surprised if Port become harder and harder to beat the longer the season goes. They've long been driven by emotion under Ken Hinkley. We do know that. So the closer we get to his last game as the coach, I think the more they'll have something to play for. And this is just some of the teams that they have to play in the run home here. And this is why I reckon they'll be a finals shaper. They got Hawthorn, Adelaide, Geelong, Fremantle and Gold Coast in their last game to come. So if you're any of those teams looking to make finals or qualify for the top 4, gee whiz, watch out if you're up against Ken Hinkley's men, because he can get them up and going whenever he wants.
Hawthorn, very interesting, given the history.
It is.
I would love Ken Hinkley. Given he knows
that could be the most anticipated game.
He could just go off. He'd be like, I don't care anymore. You guys have disrespected me at one point, and we just might as well lay it out on the table. Let's have a crack.
They absolutely smacked Hawthorn earlier in the year, if you remember, at the Adelaide Oval.
Yeah, and I think Ken could just give his honest and true opinion of all the things that have happened on that day, and I wouldn't blame him.
A few injuries down there, but emotions do funny things.
One thing that'll be an interesting game is the Crows game. Oh, the old showdown.
The final showdown under
wild.
Ken. Yeah.
Really that'll be very interesting. Yeah. Obviously, that's kind of like the one you look at all that. As far as fan enjoyment, that's the one that sticks out.
Yeah.
And the rest of them are almost like more important for the teams that they're playing against rather than them as Port Adelaide.
If they
obviously.
lose every game from here but win the showdown, the fans will be
Fans
okay
will be
with
happy.
that.
Yeah, fans won't mind.
Yeah.
But then you look at the other ones and you're like, oh, how fun would it be to just sit there and knock teams out and be the reason they didn't make finals? Like we've done that with Carlton, I think, in the past, and that was
2022. Yeah,
and we did it with Melbourne also in the past too. And that
was
feeling
20,
after those
I reckon that was
2018,
maybe 17,
2017,
yeah,
sorry,
2017. Yeah.
And that was like
I remember they
such
I reckon
an
Melbourne
enjoyable
released
time.
merchandise, or they did something like that, like "Welcome to the Finals" or something. They'd already released it, or they had it like created or something.
Yeah.
And then I think you guys won in the final round of the season.
The final round.
Yeah. Denied.
Got me another contract at the club.
There you go.
It's crazy. That's a crazy story within itself. I'll digress again.
Another topic for next time.
Yeah. Last one. Don't be surprised. Mid-season draftees are going to keep getting gigs very early in their career. We had Steely, as we like to call
What's
him.
his name? Roan?
Yep, Ron Steele over the weekend play for us. He's an incredible runner and played really well. And the guy's only been here for like 3 or 4 weeks, I feel like. It's absolutely insane to think of someone having to move cities and then learn a whole new game plan, meet all your teammates, learn how to interact with everyone, become part of the club.
Yep.
And then be playing AFL games that quickly.
He looked pretty comfortable too. And they all have. Everyone that's debuted, they're actually showing a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not just our team, like other teams too, like all these mid-season draftees that are coming in that are mature age players are able to essentially slot straight into a team.
Yeah.
And I think it's something whenever we first started this, we were a bit kind of, I don't know how this is going to work out. And now we're really seeing the fruits of our labors to say, okay, like there's definitely opportunity and there's definitely talent that's out there that can definitely make a team better and be able to help them in the mid-season.
I've always said there's more mature age talent out there in the country that we actually realise. So that's why I love the mid-season draft. It's a mechanism to actually discover some players like this. So
for sure. Big fan of it.
I think it's been awesome. Thanks to you, mate. That'll do it for another week.
Elite.
Yes, go well this weekend,
big games this weekend. I'm excited to see kind of how this all pans
out.
Looking
forward to it.
It's going to be nuts.
Yeah, hopefully we have another bunch of stuff to talk about next week, which I'm sure we will. To everyone at home, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the footy. Don't forget your tips. We will speak to you next week.